Hello, I'm Hank Berkowitz, president of HB Publishing and Marketing Company. Our topic today is research that sells. Joining me are Rick Telberg, president of Bay Street Group Research, Steve Rappaport, Knowledge Solutions Director for the Advertising Research Foundation, and Eric Wynn, president of Wynn Media Company. To download more podcasts like these for business-to-business marketers, please visit our website at www.hbpubdev.com. Let's face it, we're a numbers-oriented, show-me-the ROI society these days. Thanks to the internet and increasingly sophisticated survey tools and survey takers, business-to-business marketers have more research about their customers, their competitors, and their industry than ever before. But instead of being helpful and well-informed, a lot of our clients are telling us they're literally drowning in data. They're suffering from so much analysis paralysis that they never really have time to put all that great research to work for them. Gentlemen, when it comes to market research, how do you know you're really asking the right questions? And how do you know that you're getting the answers that you really need that's going to ultimately lead to sales and future revenue for your business?
Well, it starts with two things. It starts with understanding what it is you want to find out from the manufacturer, the vendor, the marketer. The other thing is understanding the survey taker, understanding what they know and what they don't know. The worst thing we can do is to ask a survey question of a survey taker that they don't have an answer for.
So in other words, it's not just trying to find out what you know, but trying to find out what you don't know.
Exactly. And you have to figure that out in the early stages, because the survey tool, the device, has to be very specific and very well crafted in order to get the right kind of response.
So Steve, what are you saying? You are deep into research. You're at the absolute cutting edge of research. What are you finding from where you sit?
Well, I want to say I agree. And I'd like to actually add a different dimension to it, and that is oftentimes when we're thinking about research, we're thinking about surveys and doing quantitative work and things, or doing focus groups with customers. But there's a new family of research methods that are gaining adoption now, and collectively they're called listening tools, right? And listening means really listening to the conversation, so the blog postings, the comments, the reviews, right, and things that your customers are, or the conversations that your customers are having online, you know, around your brand, around their likes and their dislikes and their goals and aspirations and things. And so so many companies now have their own bulletin boards and and things. So what they're doing is they're starting to listen to those conversations and using that as a source for gaining some insight into, you know, not just the numbers of the customer, right? But really, what is it that they're really talking about that a brand, a marketer, or a service provider should be engaging with them about. And so using the two in combination can really be a very, very powerful way to get more insight into your customer, and and have the research give you the guidance that you need to develop new products, to market more effectively, to develop messaging and things like that.
Steve, you were so right about listening. It's the first act of marketing, and so many people forget that it all starts with listening to the customer.
Yeah, and and sometimes what's happened over the last number of years is that there's been so much emphasis on the quantitative that we're really not, that we're measuring instead of listening. And now the balance is shifting back.
So Eric, you're on the firing lines. You're involved in a lot of very complicated, long-term, multiple buy-in sells. What are you seeing from where you sit?
Well, there are a couple of factors. I think first, the points that have been made here are right on target. There is the empirical need of information. There's also the intuitive piece, where we have to listen to. Again, the listening is a core. On the sales side of the equation, we have to work in multi-levels throughout a sales organization or corporate structure. We have to understand very clearly what their needs and objectives are and make sure we fulfill them and then grow their opportunity in their business. The basis of that is the kind of research we develop. That research will give us the information and the intelligence to drive that sales process effectively.
So it sounds like research is more and more important than ever before, front to end. More and more companies now feel like they have to do their own original, deep dive empirical research. Not everyone's equipped to do that. Let's start with you, Rick. How can you really get started doing empirical research or something that looks and sounds like fully customized, tailor-made for our organization and our customers?
You start by understanding what the objectives are. You have to understand what the right questions are for the marketer. What are they trying to accomplish? What are they trying to find out? What's the nature of the problem that they're trying to solve? And that is the most important part. Before you ever deploy a survey, before you ever go out into the field, before you ever convene a focus group, it starts with understanding why the marketer needs the information.
Sounds so simple. I mean, Steve, why does it go wrong so often?
Well, there's habit. And habits are really hard to break. I mean, one of the things that we've seen at the ARF is that if you look at where research budgets are spent, right? You think of a bell curve, okay? 80% of the money is spent on confirmatory work. 10% at the tails, 10% is sort of listening, right? Getting new insights, and 10% is actually around application and things. So that 80% is just a lot of habit. And what frustrates many companies is that they really don't know what to do with it, right? Because this is a world of tracking studies and things. Now, tracking studies can be great, right? But sometimes what happens is that you track aspects of your brand or business in ways that might have been appropriate 15 years ago, right? But aren't really so appropriate today, right? But there's resistance to change what's being tracked because then, how do you compare, right? So smarter marketers and companies are really saying, okay, how can we use this money differently, right? So, but that's a conversation that only a minority of companies are really having.
Let me stop you there for a second,
Yeah.
Steve. Eric, when you come back from the field, you've done an incredible amount of work just to get in the door, you and your team. And you come back with intelligence back from the customer or the prospect or even the suspect that we would call the early stage. How much does your feedback make it back to the marketing side of the equation?
Well, there's really two parts of that. It's a good question. The first part, in response to what you're saying, which is right on target, is that when you're doing research for an external group, another corporation, part of that foundation has to be that they sign on to the information they get out of it. Very often they go into that research with a preset set of conclusions that they want to prove. And it's really essential that you get them to sign on to the result, whatever that result might be, as an actionable opportunity. And without doing that, then that research really doesn't serve a purpose. So from that context, when I go in and I'm coming back with information, with intelligence from the field, it's really essential to my team that they understand that information is real time. And reality is important for them to understand that without that, they can't make changes at the top end to affect the product or affect the brand.
And just to piggyback on that, because it's a really important point, is that it's one thing to do the research, it's another to communicate the results of the research in a way that people can appreciate. And so it's really important to be able to say not what the percentage changes are necessarily, but rather what's the story that the research is telling, and how does that story then influence the kinds of decisions that need to be made. So so the ability to tell stories, right, and really enrich and communicate in a persuasive way, a rich way, in a nuanced way, is very, very important. And it's one of the barriers to using research effectively. Because it's like, what do I, because you need to be able to answer the question, what do I do with this, not what do I do with it.
Well, then let me jump in for just a sec. Then we're talking about telling stories. We're talking about deep dive within research, closing the loop between coming back from the field and pushing messages out to the field. Now, some of our clients are asking us, can we take this great research on the road? Can we even do road shows? I mean, let's go across the panel. I mean, can you take the research on the road? Can you take non-salespeople on a high-level sales call and present the research and shorten the sales cycle?
Well, absolutely. And it's about storytelling. Mm-hmm. It's exactly about storytelling. It's about finding a way to make it real and understandable. And part of that is understanding the depth and the quality of the research you've done and the story you need to tell. And the other part is understanding what it is that the prospect needs to know in order to make a decision. It's essential to understand what the prospect is looking for, what problem or issue or challenge or opportunity they have, and addressing that as specifically as possible. That's the real talent of a sales team, is understanding the subconscious and subterranean issues that a prospect has. And when a sales team and a marketing team can work together to solve those problems, they can meet with a prospect and turn them into a customer.
That really gets down to contextualizing the research and making it fit the needs of the people to whom you're presenting.
Amen.
If you don't do that, if you boilerplate everything, you really don't have an opportunity to gain traction with that information, because then you're simply scattershotting. What you really need to do is tailor the information specific to the needs of the company or the people to whom you're presenting.
Yeah, and here's an example of how that works in practice. Communispace is a company that creates private branded communities for their clients. And in the B2B space, one of their clients is CDW, which is a reseller of computers and parts and services and things. And they actually have 3 communities, one for each of their market segments: small, medium, and large enterprises. And and in these times, right, one of the things that's happened is that more competitors to CDW are calling their customers, right? So the question that CDW has is, how can I make sure that the person on the end takes my call, right, and doesn't just send it into voicemail and not call me back? And so what they did is they did a study doing just what you guys are talking about, right? What is it that, if we're calling you, what is it that you'd like us to tell you? What is it that you're looking to solve, right? How can we, initiate and stay engaged with you, and all of these. And so their buyers, their community members are saying, this is what we would like. And they actually developed a sales process around all of the feedback, right? The subterranean that you're talking about, and the application to the problem. And it's been very successful.
So it sounds like even though business-to-business marketing is getting more and more complicated, and more tools are at your disposal, and more questioning and probing needs to go on, I mean, are sales and marketing people actually working more cooperatively? Is sales and marketing cooperation an oxymoron, or is that an Ivy Tower aspiration? I mean, what are you seeing, Rick, from where you are?
At the successful organizations, the one-word answer is yes. Otherwise, they're not in the game. They have to be working together.
And Steve, I mean, how can a sales and marketing initiative actually start to work together at the many siloed organizations, a lot of the very large organizations that you work with? How do you break down those barriers?
It's about sharing information, and sharing knowledge, because what goes through the silos can be knowledge, right? It's really because when organizations are siloed, everybody has their attitudes and their responsibilities and things. But if you can show that you've got some common understanding, right, then that gives you the basis to have a conversation about how to join forces and tackle it, right, and think about it. And so I'd say that's true in sales and marketing. It's also really true around the whole area of social media as well.
Just a simple kind of closing point here to me is that good research from the sales side is one of the best selling tools that any sales organization, a marketing organization, can ever have to get in to see a client. No client, if the information is actionable and beneficial to their growth and prosperity, will really turn down the opportunity to get information that they themselves don't already have. And so when the research is done properly and the presentation is done in the appropriate way, the sales organization has a great sales opportunity to move their agenda forward.
Exactly. If a salesman can walk into a meeting and say, I know something about your clients you don't know,
Exactly.
he's got their attention.
Exactly.
So it's just a fascinating dynamic. We're going to have to do this again. Rick, Steve, Eric, thanks so much for your time. I'm sure during just this brief dialogue, brief conversation, things have changed 3 or 4 times in the outside world since we've been here in the studio. Thanks again for coming. Again, if you'd like to see more podcasts like these for business-to-business marketers, please visit our website at www.hbpubdev.com.